Have you ever heard of the Rastafarian movement? Have you ever heard of the Rastafarian religion? Well, I want to talk to you about the Rastafarian movement, if only for a few minutes, to give you some insight into the spiritual cosmology and so on and so forth with the Rastafarian movement. So when we come back, we'll come back with more information on the Rastafari. Welcome back. Well, the best place to start with anything is really at the beginning. And basically, the beginning truly would have to be with Marcus Messiah Garvey. Marcus Messiah Garvey was an immigrant who had immigrated from Jamaica to the United States. And while he was in the United States, he started the United Negro Improvement Association, and he created things like the Black Star Line, that was a shipping company, boat vessel shipping company that was to go between the U.S. and Africa in trade and things of that nature. But the role that he plays or played with the Rastafarian movement was that he is seen as a prophet to the Rastafarian brethren. And he had said in one of his presentations that a king would emerge in the east, on the African continent, and that king would stand above all others and so on and so forth, and he would be crowned King of Kings and Lord of Lords and so on and so forth. And what transpired therein, it was in the 1930s thereabouts, 1920s I should say, a governor in the country of Ethiopia, Rastafari Makonnen, he ascended to the throne of Ethiopia, and during his coronation he was crowned King of Kings and Lord of Lords and so on and so forth. And basically the coronation service, or the coronation ceremony, was observed by a then Jamaican minister. I cannot recall his name at the time, but he went back to Jamaica and he said that a black king was crowned and so on and so forth. And a gentleman by the name of Leonard Howell, this would have been about 1930s thereabouts, he proclaimed that this crowned king, Haile Selassie, was the then God in flesh. And this was considered the start of the Rastafarian movement. And basically, to put it this way, the initial Rastafarians did not have dreadlocks as you see them today. The original Rastafarians called themselves beard men. And these Rastafarian beard men would basically just grow their beards long. And it wasn't until the theological changes came into Rastafari with tying the Bible to the movement that a deeper theological emergence, but I'm overstepping my boundary. I'll get to that eventually. As it stands, there are a number of sects within Rastafari today. For instance, you have the Nyabingi sect, you have the Bobo Shanti sect, you have the 12 tribe sect. And please take no offense if I use the term sect to those brethren in the faith. It is just to describe the different arms. And for those of you who may not understand what I'm talking about, just as in Christianity, you would have Baptists, you would have Catholic, you would have Anglican, you would have Protestants, you would have Methodists, and so on and so forth. Within Rastafari, you have these different arms as well, Bobo Shanti, Nyabingi, 12 tribes, and so on and so forth. Now, to give you an understanding, you'd more clearly recognize those who follow the Bobo Shanti and the Nyabingi order because of their dress and their priestly raiments. in terms of how the hair is tied and the general outlay of the robes and things of that nature. Now, in terms of orthodoxy, the Bobo Shanti and the Nyabingi are very orthodox in terms of that they see Ali Selassie as God. Now, the 12 tribes has a little differentiation with that. They do not see him as God. They just see him as an icon, a man who is in an elevated state. And they claim that basically because he himself said that he was not God, that he serves the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That in itself serve as a disclaimer, but I find myself rambling now. Coming back to the history, the original Rastas called themselves Beardmen, and it wasn't until 1954 thereabouts a revolution, a war, a civil war was going on in Kenya at the time, and the revolutionaries that were operating as militia and freedom fighters at that time, they called themselves Mau Mau, the Mau Mau warriors. And these Mau Mau warriors grew their hair long in dreadlocks, and they grew their beards long, and basically it was attributed to the newspaper that highlighted that particular group in Kenya was teleported or transported to Jamaica, and it was there that the dreadlocks became a part of the Rastafarian movement. And what we find is the hair and the beard was tied to the biblical aspect, the theological aspect, through the King James version of the Bible, the book Numbers 6 in particular, where it speaks to the Nazirite vow. And this Nazirite vow basically was a vow that strict Jews took, who wanted to set themselves aside and apart from the other Jews of that time who would have occupied, say, offices of the scribes, Pharisees, Sadducees, and the regular layperson. Number 6 basically says that anyone who takes this vow, this Nazirite vow, is supposed to allow their hair to grow for the duration of that vow, and no knife or no razor is supposed to cut their hair. For some, the Nazirite vow is for an allotted period of time, whether it is for a number of weeks or months or even a number of years. For some who claim to be Nazirites from birth, it is a lifelong thing. But there is a service or a ritual that is had when a Nazirite comes to the end of their vow, and they have to shave their locks and so on and so forth. There's a particular ritual, but we won't get into that. The other issue that comes up within the Rastafarian faith that you may want to be mindful or knowledgeable about is the whole issue of marijuana. Now, here it is. Most Rastafarians will tell you that the marijuana is a holy herb or a holy sacrament. And to justify it from the biblical standpoint, they would send you to Genesis chapter 1, verse 28, or Genesis chapter 1, verse 29, where it basically says that God gave all herb-bearing seed to man to have as meat. That is the first aspect of the marijuana in relation to the Rastafarian faith. There's another scripture that the Rastafarian brethren would cling to, where it says, where God says that he will raise a plant of renown, a holy plant that shall be the healing of the nations. In terms of what it does, what from a spiritual standpoint, most Rastafarian brethren will tell you that it elevates their spiritual consciousness. What is referred to as the higher man, the inner man, the wiser self or the higher self emerges when they smoke or take their sacrament in the form of whether it is a chalum pipe or chalice pipe or chylum, or whether it is through smoking it or ingesting it through a marijuana joint. But whatever the case is. Now what they say in essence is this higher man is tied to the God, and basically this is the God in man, or the God in man, and they embrace this construct or concept whereby it is termed the I in I. The construct spiritually, you would find that you would embrace the fact that God is not outside of you, that the divine is inside of you. And this is one of the key tenets of the Rastafarian faith that I personally found interesting. As an individual, I trotted Farai basically from 1995 to about 2005. I moved on from Farai for personal reasons, but we'll get on to that, because what I found is everybody's belief system or religious beliefs is different. In terms of the benefits that I found in Rastafari as a religion and as a belief system, it taught one to look at things, it taught me to look at things from a different perspective. It was not just through the eye of the ego and through the eye of the whole physical protoplasm. What Rastafari did for me is it allowed me to look deeper within myself and see the role that I would play in society and the rhyme and reason for me being here. What I've found is Rastafari has, to a great degree, began to be watered down because of the various elements that are being added into it, but maybe I'll discuss that in a later place. But the whole thing about the Rastafarian movement is they see themselves as the children of the Bible, the true Israelites of the Bible. They see themselves as the children of God in the Bible, the chosen children who are being cast out into the new world via the slavery diaspora. In terms of its history, a lot of individuals have started to research Rastafari, but what I found is most individuals only judge Rastafari from the outside, from the perspective that they see it as merely an escapist movement of individuals who would focus on using marijuana as a means of escaping their societal obligations. What I find is most persons who are trotting Farai, as they say, or who are adherents to the Rastafari movement, because they do not elucidate, they do not break down their belief system enough for individuals, and it appears as something on the outside looking in. It appears somewhat cultish, and it appears to be somewhat of a black revolutionary type of movement, but that in itself has changed and is changing in terms of the construct, because you know that some of the early Rastafari brethren would cling to the writings of individuals other than Marcus Mosiah Garvey writings and speeches. They also would look to the writings of individuals like Walter Rodney, with groundings with the brethren or brothers, with my brothers. individuals like Franz Fanon, Wretched of the Earth. So it took on a revolutionary type of essence and energy. But when you get to the true essence of what Rastafari is truly about, it really boils down to love. Love of self, love of your fellow man, and love of the divine, your creator, the Most High God. And here it is. That was the most fundamental lesson that I personally learned from Rastafari. Through Rastafari, I found that here it is, you can find a total stranger, and just for the mere fact that you have dreadlocks and you speak a particular language that has become a universal language associated with Rastafari, there's a meeting ground whereby individuals know that certain tenets and certain mindsets evolve around Rastafari. For instance, the vegetarian lifestyle, the lifestyle of fasting, the lifestyle of prayers and itations and irations. The whole thing is, Rastafari to me has been misconstrued, because here it is, there has been this bad boy element that emerged in the 80s, whereby individuals who did not adhere to the tenets of Rastafari but took on the appearance of Rastafari, these individuals we came to label as dreadlocks or dread or rude boy or bad boys and so on and so forth. And this in itself hurt Rastafari to a great degree. Now what is going on is a lot of the history hasn't been shared, and that in itself is causing a decline in the Rastafarian faith in terms of membership. But this was just me giving some initial insight into Rastafari, in terms of that's me talking about Rastafari. Am I presently a Rasta? No, I don't see myself as a Rasta. As you can see, no dreadlocks, and I know my 12 tribe brethren will say that 12 tribes accept bald heads and so on and so forth. But I guess to the Rasta man, I am a Rasta. To the Hindu, I am a Hindu. And to the Buddhist, I am a Buddhist. To the Christian, I am a Christian. And to all man, I'll be all things. I am just simply here to share some truth, and today was the truth on the Rastafarian movement, as best as I can put it. So to the elders of the movement, if I have not done a service in a positive way to the movement as it is designed and desired, I apologize in advance. This is just the first installment. I will look deeper at Rastafari, and I will look at the different arms of Rastafari and the different tenets. I've just basically espoused a deep, broad, sweeping brush, and that is the reason why I'm apologizing in advance. But I just want to thank you for tuning into what I had to say, and this is Doc saying thank you, peace and love. And if this benefited you, like and subscribe. We'll be giving you more stuff like this. We'll be touching everything, Sufism, Buddhism, Hinduism, the lost books, lost civilization. So stand by for other videos. This is Doc saying thanks for tuning in. Until next time, peace and love and all that good stuff.